So Harry's trial against the Daily Mail is finally over. 11 weeks of testimony, dozens of witnesses, mountains of evidence, and on the very last day, something landed in that courtroom that nobody saw coming. His own messages, private Facebook messages between Harry and a reporter named Charlotte Griffiths. Messages where he calls her Sugar. Messages where she calls him Mr. Mischief. Messages where he says, and I quote, he misses their movie snuggles. And here's the part that should concern you. Harry told the court under oath that he met Griffiths once. Once! He had no idea she was a journalist, that his social circles were not leaky. But those messages tell a very different story, and the timing of all of this, combined with everything else happening around the articles right now, paints a picture that is getting harder and harder to ignore. Welcome back, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue, and today we needed to talk because this week gave us more material than a full season of Venezuelan telenovela. Let's get right to it. Let's start with Charlotte Griffiths because this story has layers and most channels are only scratching the surface. Charlotte Griffiths is not some random intern who once bumped into Harry at a cocktail party. She's now the editor-at-large at The Mail on Sunday. She has been covering the royals for years. She is the same journalist that multiple sources say Harry was leaking stories to last year. The same one who reportedly published those photos of sausage advisors meeting at a restaurant. This is not a stranger. This is a recurring character in Harry's story and a very convenient one. Now, the messages themselves date back to 2011 and 2012, long before Meghan was in the picture. And the Sausage Squad, bless their hearts, already running the defense. This was before Meghan. It's a nothing story. The press is obsessed. But here's what they are missing. The issue is not that Harry flirted with a reporter 15 years ago. The issue is that Harry told a judge under oath that his social circles were airtight, that journalists could only have gotten his private information through illegal hacking. That is the foundation of his entire case, and now we have printed, time-stamped evidence that he was voluntarily exchanging personal messages, like sugar, like H-bomb, movie snuggles, with a journalist who worked for the very newspaper he is suing. So think about that, what that does to his credibility, or what is left of it. He didn't just know a journalist socially. He gave her his private number. He sent her messages over weeks. He used pet names. And then he sat in front of a judge and said, essentially, I did not have relationships with reporters. The defense attorney for Associated Newspapers must have had the biggest smile of his career handing those printouts to the judge. Because this is not about flirting. This is about whether Harry's entire argument that every piece of private information published about him had to come from illegal surveillance holds up when he was voluntarily handing personal details to the press itself. And let's not forget that Griffiths told the court that their mutual friends knew she was a journalist. She worked under Katie Nicholl. She attended the same parties, the same country house weekends, the same nightclubs. Harry's world was not the sealed vault he described. It was a revolving door, and he was the one holding it open. Now, the trial is over. Judge Nicklin said the ruling will take us some time, and he's going to work on it full-time after the Easter break, which means we're looking at weeks, possibly months, before we get a verdict. But regardless of which way it goes, those Griffiths messages are now part of the public record. They cannot be unread. And for a man who has spent 6 years telling the world that the British media destroyed his life through illegal means, having evidence that he was quite chummy with that same media voluntarily is devastating. And I know the sausages are going to say, but the media did hack phones. Mirror Group admitted it. News Corp settled. And yes, that is true. But the Daily Mail case is different. Because Associated Newspapers has denied everything from the beginning. They call the claims preposterous smears. And when your star witness, private investigator named Gavin Burrows, takes the stand and says he never actually spied for the mail, and the defense argues that Burrows' original statement was essentially manufactured by Harry's own legal research team, well, that is not the slam dunk Harry was hoping for. But here's where it gets really interesting, because none of this is happening in isolation. While Harry's what's left of his credibility was taking hits in a London courtroom, the rest of the Harkle universe was doing what it does best, imploding on multiple fronts simultaneously. Let's talk about Netflix. Variety. The Variety published a devastating piece about the state of the Sausage-Netflix partnership. And I want you to understand, this is Variety. This is not a royal gossip blog. This is the entertainment industry Bible. And they spoke to 6 people with a direct knowledge of the relationship. And the key quote from a Netflix insider was, "The mood in the building is, we are done. Done. After the $100 million deal, after Harry and Meghan, after the cooking show, after the Polo documentary. The streaming giant that was supposed to be the Harkle's ticket to Hollywood legitimacy is apparently exhausted by what they described as a pattern of repackaging, pun intended, the same royal accent story over and over again. Sources told Variety that Meghan's behavior in meetings ruffled feathers internally, that the ratings for "With Love, Meghan" were lackluster, and that Netflix pulled out of backing as ever Meghan's lifestyle brand, the very brand she was supposed to build into an empire. And what is the response from Team Sausages? A new scripted polo drama. A polo drama set in Wellington, Florida, following rival polo families. And the response online has been, let's say, enthusiastic in the way that a car accident is enthusiastic. People are openly asking who this show is for. Because the intersection of people who watch Netflix dramas and people who care about competitive polo in Florida is apparently around 7 humans, and 4 of them are named Windsor. But it gets better. Remember, Meghan signed with WME, one of the biggest talent agencies in the world, back in 2023. She was supposed to be their next big thing. And within 3 months, key members of the team assembled to represent her quietly dropped off the account. Ari Emanuel, the CEO of Endeavor, stepped away. The agent who built Serena Williams' empire is still there, but the original firepower, gone. So that tells you everything about how Hollywood actually views the Duchess of Sausages behind closed doors. And then there's Australia. The Harkles are heading down under in mid-April. Harry's doing a keynote speech at a psychosocial safety summit in Melbourne, and tickets start at nearly $2,000, and Harry presumably collects his standard speaking fee on top of that. And meanwhile, Meghan is headlining a 3-day luxury women's retreat in Sydney called Her Best Life. The VIP tickets, $3,000, okay. And for that price, you get a gala dinner, a group photo with the Duchess of Sausages, and the privilege of pretending this is not a paid and meet and greet. But here's where it gets spicy. The organizer of this retreat, Gemma O'Neill, runs an agency that went into voluntary liquidation last year, owing over $500,000 to the Australian tax office. And Meghan is reportedly doing this appearance, wait for it, as a favor. A favor for a woman whose company collapsed, owing the government hundreds of thousands. My rogue is, when I tell you that the Harkle orbit is a magnet for questionable business partnerships, I need you to understand that this is not an exaggeration. It is, as usual, you know it, a pattern. And then came the cherry on top. A prominent Sausage Squad member, a self-described senior lieutenant, announced that she'd be attending the Sydney retreat as a VIP guest. The same person who publicly called Catherine's cancer diagnosis a hoax. The same person who referred to William and Catherine as the Macbeths. Now, do I think Meghan personally vetted every ticket buyer? Probably not, but when your brand is built on empathy, wellness, and women supporting women, and your event attendees include someone who publicly mocked a woman's cancer treatment, and more than 35,000 Australians have signed a petition demanding no tax-paying money be spent on your visit, maybe you should have someone checking the guest list. And let's not forget that all of this is happening while the Oracle's inner circle continues to shrink. James Holt, the co-executive director of Archewell, the man who followed them from the UK, one of the last true sausage loyalists, left the organization and moved his family back to London. Their chief communications officer, Meredith Maines, also departed. Newsweek described the couple as entering 2026 substantially weakened, you don't say. And it's bad when even the people who uprooted their lives to follow you across an ocean decide it's time to go home. And now, the final piece of this week's masterpiece. King Charles is coming to America. Full state visit, April 27 to 30. A White House banquet. An address to a joint session of Congress. The first by a British monarch in 35 years. So this is historic. This is significant. And Harry will not be there. A source told people that Harry wouldn't ask for a meeting during a state visit because every minute is accounted for. And look, that's the diplomatic answer. The real answer is that King Charles is visiting Washington, D.C. to represent the crown. And Harry walked away from the crown. Those two realities cannot share a dinner table, and everyone knows it. But think about the optics from Harry's perspective for a moment. His father, whose decline in health Harry has publicly used as a reason to push for more UK visits, whose cancer diagnosis Harry leveraged to argue for renewed security, whose relationship Harry claimed he was desperate to repair. His father is flying to the country where Harry lives, and they won't see each other. The last time they met was September 2025. Charles hasn't seen Archie and Lilibet in person in, 4 years? And while his father is shaking hands with the president, Harry will be doing what? Developing a polo drama? Planning his Australia motivational speaking tour? Reviewing the movie snuggle situation with his legal team? So my rogues, I need you to zoom out for a moment and look at all of this together, because when you see each story individually, the Griffiths messages, the Netflix frustration, the Australian retreat controversy, the King Charles non-meeting, they feel like separate headlines, but they are not. They're chapters of the same story, and it's a story about consequences. Harry spent 6 years telling the world that the British media was the villain, that leaving the royal family was an act of courage, that he and Meghan would build something better, something independent, something real. And 6 years later, the media he sued is producing evidence that he was cozier with the reporters than he admitted. Maybe cozier than with Meghan, but the streaming platform that gave them $100 million is reportedly ready to move on. The Australian public is so unenthusiastic about their visit that tens of thousands signed a petition against it, and the family Harry left behind is conducting a historic state visit to his adopted country without him. At what point do we stop calling these setbacks and start calling them the natural result of the choices they have made? I said this months ago, and I will say it again. The Harkles are not victims of bad luck. They are not victims of a media conspiracy. They are the architects of their own situation. Every bridge they burn, every relationship they touch, every institution they criticized, it all comes back. Not as karma, not as revenge, but as reality. Cold, indifferent, mathematical reality. Harry wanted to be free from the press, and now the press has his movie snuggles messages. Meghan wanted to be an independent brand, now her brand partner's company is in liquidation. They wanted to be bigger than the royal family, now the royal family is visiting Washington without them. And the saddest part, I don't think Harry sees it yet. I think he's still believes the next project, the next speech, the next lawsuit will be the one that changes everything. But it won't, because the problem was never the press or the palace of the public. The problem is, again, the pattern. And the pattern hasn't changed. So, what do you think, my rogues? Are the Griffiths messages going to hurt Harry's case? Is the Netflix relationship actually over? And do you think Harry and his father will ever have a real reunion? Or is the gap just too wide now? Let me know in the comments, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue. Much love and bliss.